The subway car rattled through the black veins of the city. Midnight, the air hung heavy, thick with the silence of the sleeping city above. Each flickering fluorescent light cast the car in a sickly yellow glow, highlighting the grime on the walls and the worn fabric of the seats. The train lurched around a bend, the screeching of the wheels a discordant symphony in the otherwise oppressive quiet. A young man sat huddled by the window, his face pale and drawn. His eyes darted nervously around the near-empty car, his fingers twisting a button on his coat. He clutched a worn leather briefcase on his lap, his knuckles white with tension. The rhythmic rumble of the train did little to soothe his evident fear. Every shadow seemed to writhe. Every unexpected noise sent a jolt of terror through him. He tried to distract himself, focusing on the graffiti-marred window across from him. The city blurred past, a kaleidoscope of darkness punctuated by the occasional streetlight. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, a prickling sensation on the back of his neck. He risked a glance over his shoulder, but the few other passengers were lost in their own worlds, faces hidden in shadow or obscured by newspapers. He took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising panic in his chest. It was just his imagination, he told himself. Just the late hour and the unsettling atmosphere of the nearly deserted train. He closed his eyes, willing his fear to subside. It was then that he noticed it, a soft, cold breath against his ear. His eyes snapped open, his heart pounding. He was alone, the seat beside him empty. He turned to the window, seeing a reflection. It wasn't his own. A figure loomed behind him. Tall and skeletal, it was menacing. Hollow eyes stared from the darkness. He recoiled, breath catching in his throat. He glanced over his shoulder, nothing was there. The reflection lingered in the glass. The figure moved closer, its details sharpening. He felt its icy breath on his neck. Panic constricted his chest. He was frozen in place, paralyzed by fear. He squeezed his eyes shut, praying it was a hallucination. He opened his eyes again, dreading what he might see. The reflection was gone. He let out a shaky breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The train rattled onward, the rhythmic clatter a counterpoint to the frantic beating of his heart. He tried to focus on the world outside the window, willing himself to believe it had just been a figment of his imagination. The lights flickered, plunging the car into momentary darkness. When they sputtered back to life, the shadows seemed to have shifted, contorting into grotesque shapes that danced on the walls. His gaze darted around the car, searching for the source of his unease, but the other passengers remained unchanged. They sat unnaturally still, their heads bowed, their faces hidden in the shadows. He tried to convince himself it was just the flickering lights playing tricks on his eyes. But deep down, a chilling certainty took root. Something was wrong. There was a wrongness to the stillness of the other passengers, a wrongness to the shadows that clung to them like shrouds. The train screeched as it slowed, approaching another station. The announcement crackled to life, the distorted voice barely audible above the grinding of the brakes. He couldn't make out the name of the station, but he didn't care. Any stop would do, any escape from this moving tomb. He stood, his legs shaking, and made his way towards the doors, pushing past the other passengers. Their stillness was unnerving, their silence absolute. He avoided making eye contact, afraid of what he might see in their gazes. He could feel their eyes on him, cold and heavy, tracking his every move. He reached the doors just as they hissed open, flooding the car with the harsh fluorescent glare of the platform. He hesitated, glancing back at the other passengers. They remained seated, unmoving, their heads still bowed. Even in the brighter light, their faces were obscured, hidden in the deep shadows that seemed to cling to them like a shroud. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching him, their unseen eyes burning into his back. He forced himself to step out onto the platform, his escape fueled by a primal instinct to flee. He didn't look back, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. He stumbled down the platform, desperate to put as much distance between himself and the train as possible. He could feel the weight of unseen eyes on his back, the chill of their presence clinging to him like cobwebs. As he reached the relative safety of the crowded station, a wave of dizziness washed over him. He leaned against a pillar, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He risked a glance back at the platform. The train was gone, swallowed by the darkness of the tunnel. He closed his eyes, trying to steady himself. It was then that he noticed it, the reflection in the polished metal of a nearby vending machine. His own pale face stared back at him, his eyes wide with terror. But there was something else, something that sent a fresh wave of horror crashing over him. Reflected in his wide pupils, a grotesque tableau unfolded. He saw himself still seated on the train, and behind him, no longer a hazy reflection but a horrifying reality, stood the skeletal figure. Its long, bony fingers caressed his hair, its hollow eyes gazing out from his own reflection with a chilling possessiveness. He was not alone. He would never be alone again.